Hi all, it's been a while since I did actually a vlog here where I'm speaking and doing a voiceover. So I figured I'd do something a little bit like that for this flight. It's a pretty simple one. We took off just north of Auckland Regional Airport, and this was our flight path. It was a pretty simple one. We followed Maricopa Casa Grande Highway down to a certain point to where we just went pretty much a beeline over to the Eye of Grande, or also known as the Casa Grande copper mine. There was a lot of turbulence over in that area this day. Actually, there was a lot of turbulence across the board. So we didn't spend too much time there. We turned around and came back, but had a decent flight. So that kind of gives you an overview of the area of where this is located in case you ever want to go fly there. And I hope you enjoy the video. The winds were actually about 8 to 9 miles an hour, so that's why we were doing a reverse launch here. Here's Taka. He took off really quickly. He weighs a lot less than I do, so he pretty much tinkerbelled into the air there, and we took off. I was going to do a reverse launch, which is what you'll see me doing here, but with the camera that I have, the placement on the cage, I've been having a lot of problems with this and been trying to figure out how not to get it caught, and I was very cognizant of that during this flight. And so when I turned, you can see it catches actually on one of my lines, which was I believe one of my split A's, and so it kept on pulling to the left, and I couldn't figure out why. And I was taking off, and I was getting ready to take off, and then I saw it, and then I thought, well, maybe I can just grab it and undo it, but that wasn't the case. So I had to shut everything down, and I was not happy, to say the least, because the wind was perfect, everything was perfect. It was just that line that kept on getting caught. And so just something to be aware of if you have a camera that's kind of sticking up and it's right in the middle of your cage. This thing can happen, so you got to be aware of that if you're doing a reverse launch. Of course, this doesn't it's not problematic when you're doing a forward launch, and that's actually what I ended up doing here, because I just didn't want to run into that problem again, and you'll see that coming up. Because this stupid thing gets caught on reverses. So I really wasn't talking to myself there. I was hooked up on an intercom with our Cenas between me and Taka, and our range is roughly about 5,000 feet, I think. But I decided to go ahead and do a forward launch here, and you can see the wind is pretty strong. As I pull it up, it yanks me back, and so I had to really pull the brakes after a while to get it set. And I was looking at both sides, it was kind of pushing me around, but I just kind of toughed it out and made sure my lines weren't messed up, and then throttled it and immediately took off, because with 8 to 9 mile an hour winds, it's only a couple steps, especially when you're down at a lower elevation. And this was, I believe, around 1,700 foot elevation, so it was a pretty easy takeoff, and I love takeoffs like that. I wasn't going to bore you with the straight flight down the highway, but this is just a jump forward ahead in time to where we're coming up on the copper mine. This is all of the slough, I guess, area where they put all the things that they dug out of the Eye of Grande. But we were hitting a lot of turbulence here. It was kind of a very bumpy ride all the way. I thought the wind was going to be a lot more laminar than it was, but it was just very bumpy. And the closer we got to the mine, it got bumpier and bumpier. And then when we eventually got right beside the mine, it was probably at its worst. Taka continued to go south of the mine and fly all the way around it, and I got about halfway through, and he was telling me he was getting bumped around quite a bit, so I decided to just take a left and turn around at that point. And you can see I'm kind of getting jostled here quite a bit. It's something you get used to after a while, but it's not as comfortable and fun as a ride as other times. At this point, I've been talking to Taka, and he's been telling me he's way ahead of me there, and he's telling me he's getting jostled around pretty good. And at that point, I was getting jostled around a lot, and so I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna turn around and come back where I came from. And we met on the other side of the copper mine. But you just have to make decisions like that if you don't feel comfortable. And I'm sure there was a lot of rotor that was coming off the backside of that mine, because we had 9-mile-an-hour winds. They're coming over that slough area, and then they're coming over the mine, and I'm not really sure how the wind really reacts with a big divot in the ground, but I'm sure it's not going to be smooth. So right here I was still experiencing quite a bit of turbulence, and you can see I'm kind of at a standstill here. I was averaging 25-30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, and now at this point I'm probably at 10 miles an hour ground speed. So the turbulence started to kind of let go once we got out of that area and back over some of the green fields up the highway that we're flying to now. Right now I'm flying right over the train tracks, and we had a train that was coming down the area, and you'll see the results of that and hopefully learn from my lesson coming up here. So you can kind of see here the big difference between where we were, and then we're back over this really flat area, agriculture area, and it's just a lot smoother than it was out over by the copper mine. So it was nicer to be flying in these conditions, although we did have a little bit of turbulence here. But so in the distance I see the train coming, and I've never flown up next to a train, and so I decided I wanted to go over and get some footage of that. I knew there would be some rotor coming off of the train a little bit, so I was a little bit hesitant to get too close, so I stayed away a little bit but came up next to it about that close. What I didn't know is that there's really two sets of rotor that are coming off the back of this train, and you'll see that rotor effect right after the end of the train, and then there's even a larger one. So right there I got rocked and I could feel it, and I thought I was out of the clear, and then another one comes up that's even bigger that turns me completely sideways, at least my paramotor sideways, and I was not aware of it. Right there it just totally rocked me, and that was surprising to me because the train had already been gone for a while. So just a lesson for those of you that fly up next to a train: if you're going in the opposite direction, of that train, there's going to be rotor coming off the back of that. So just something to be aware of. Not anything that's catastrophic, but something that can definitely catch you by surprise. So this is the tail end of the flight here, and I was definitely getting cold. Come to find out that Taco was flying without gloves, and don't know how long he was able to endure that, but I know my hands were getting really cold. So just heading back here to the area that's just a little bit northwest of the Aqchen Regional Airport. If you do go fly out there, they do have kind of a particular set of rules that they want you to follow on areas to fly and stay out of as well. So just check in with the airport manager there. But they're very accommodating to PPG pilots and really work with you. So this was a great area to launch and land at as well. So really like this spot. That's Taka coming in to the left. That's a trike on the right. And poor Taka, he came in, smooth landing, and he turned around and he accidentally tripped and fell down. So I was glad to catch that on tape because he always has perfect landings and launches. So that about wraps up this flight. This is just some time lapse of us wrapping up our wing and the trikes coming out and doing some launching and landing and pretty much dousing us with smoke here, which actually smelled really good because it was baby oil. So it was kind of pleasant actually. But it was nice to meet these guys. I'd never met them. I actually met Mo Sheldon, heard a lot about him, but had never met him. Really nice guy, and just love meeting new pilots and the community of PPG pilots.